What's going on, people? Another episode of Denmark and Marsh on June 4th, 2024. We're in the midst of Jaguar OTAs, the midst of how things may or may not shake out, potentially, possibly, not really. Kind of, sort of. I'm Dylan Denmark. Graham Marsh will be beside me here in a second. I'm producer for Jaguars today and Hacker After Dark. Graham does sales and any of the podcasts that you see on 1010XL. He does all those kind of videos, produces it, kind of do everything except for be the host of the show pretty much. Pod number 2 for you today. McManus came in here earlier, right?
Pod number 2, got pod number 3 right after us as well. Campo and Joe coming up in about an hour.
Sick. How's Nashville, dude?
Oh, it was good. I was up there for a wedding. We did an episode via Zoom I'm checking to make sure we look good on Facebook. We did an episode via Zoom on Friday because I was up there. I was up there for a wedding for a buddy of mine who you've met, my buddy Isaac from Nashville. We went to high school together. For those of you that don't know, I'm from Jacksonville, but I went to high school up in Nashville, up in Titan land. Got a lot of Titans friends. They smell kind of bad. They're not as bright as we are down here. But joking aside, yeah, it was a fun weekend, man. We did like a Broadway thing Thursday night. Dude, Broadway's insane, man. How much it's grown. I mean, it's always been a fun place to go, like downtown.
So it exploded when? About 5-6 years ago, did you say?
Yeah.
That's what I feel like I, as an outsider, felt like.
I'd say, yeah.
Nashville is like a destination place.
Yeah. It went from being like sort of like a sneaky fun city to go out and like sort of, you know, pretty much my whole time I lived there, it was like one of those places that not everyone knew about as being like a really fun city to travel to and go out and do stuff and hang out in the downtown. And you'd kind of have like a more low-key destination as opposed to going to like a bigger city for a vacation, like a New York or a Chicago or an LA or something like that. Vegas. It was like a Vegas. Dude, you go downtown Broadway now, man, it's like Vegas, dude. Like, it's crazy how big it is, bro. Like, we were walking around. This is Thursday night. Like, it's not Saturday night, it's Thursday night. There are blocks and blocks and blocks of tons of huge bars on Broadway and the surrounding streets. Every single place by like 9 p.m. has a line out the door. Packed. And all these places too, by the way, they're like 2-3 stories. Yeah. Dude, crazy, man. But that was one of the most fun nights. Thursday night we had the groom's mother has a connect for a bar up there. I think she knows the person that owns it. The bar is called Friends in Low Places. And they had like a little like section VIP spot for us with like bottle service and stuff. And that was really fun. Getting to kind of start off the weekend, having a fun night in downtown Nashville. 3 straight nights of drinking, and then two 8+ hour drives.
That's a good mix.
Yeah, I'm a little tired, but we're here regardless.
Yeah, you know you had a busy weekend whenever the Gators get a commit, specifically a quarterback, and your boy doesn't even know about it.
Yeah, I was like, what are you talking about? That was news for me.
As a class of 2026, so he's going to be a junior coming up this fall. Will Griffin, he's out of Tampa. He's a 4-star quarterback. Obviously, he's got good numbers and the intangibles and all that. I don't really know how much you put into this, knowing that this is for next year's class. If it were this year's class, it'd be a lot different. Because if it's this year's class, it means a lot more because this is the time of year, like if you remember last year at this point, Billy Napier, if I'm not mistaken, was getting all these recruits to commit right now on the month of June. Because pretty much how it works in high school, colleges go 2 different ways. They can go one way, you give out hundreds of scholarships, and you go, all right, whoever wants this, first come, first serve. So let's just say you have 5 receiver scholarships you can give out, and you offer 25, 30. Okay, whoever takes the first 5, that's who's going to get a scholarship, and you go on from there. Or the school will say, I'm only giving out these 5, and I know I want these guys, and I have a pretty good understanding that they want to come here. So those are the 2 ways that colleges give out high school scholarships. But right now, I'm kind of surprised that nobody has really been committing. Like, you know, the big one here is Jamie French, the Mandarin receiver. He was committed to Alabama for about a year or so. decommitted after Nick Saban left. Has been leaning that he's going to go to Texas. He's been taking his OVs, his official visits to LSU and a couple other places. But now in the next couple of weeks, you're going to see a lot of guys committing and seeing where they're going to go. And, it's probably not 100% official because obviously with the NIL and the money that you can give in the last minute that we've seen plenty of times. But it's going to be something that's going to keep an eye out for the next couple of weeks.
And this isn't how it always works. It's not a perfect system. But if you ask most high school, especially particularly seniors that are really committing for the next football season, most of them will tell you that they want to have this stuff signed, sealed, delivered, wrapped up, and done by the time that their senior season starts. They want to be able to just play high school football, enjoy their last season of high school football with their friends they've grown up with the guys they've played, with their coaches. And most kids that are kind of the 4 or 5 star guys who have typically, by this point, they're huge leaders on their team. They're obviously the best players. They're getting offered by big time schools for a reason. These guys typically feel a big leadership role, and they want that season to kind of have as clear of a head as they can without just constant calls. Again, it's not a perfect system. They're still going to be fielding calls. People are still going to be talking to them, and a lot of these guys by December will end up at different schools than they committed to in the summer. That's typically how it works. But just kind of in principle, that's a big reason that this little period gets a lot of commitments, because the summer's the time they have to take those visits like they're talking about, and it's the time they want to get things squared away and at least think they know where they're going to college. Particularly now, it's pretty much custom and normal almost for 4 and 5 star guys to early enroll.
Yeah, there's that. And also, high school kids, they just wrapped up spring ball a week or so ago. A lot of the college coaches just finished their spring ball in mid to late April. So then they go to these practices. They talk to a lot of the kids. And like you said, a lot of these kids, these college coaches, they will text and call and text and call all day. Like I know we had a kid that's at Vanderbilt now, Mason Carter. He didn't even get a Division I offer until April of last year. And then he blew up in May and gets all these offers, and he doesn't like to talk, like some kids. And he was like, man, I'm so tired of these coaches just talking to me and bugging me over and over again. And I was like, well, there's one way to get rid of that is to put on Twitter and say I'm going X. And he did. He ended up going to Vanderbilt. He did that in July. And we had an assistant coach that was telling him, like, man, you better do it now. Like, you better commit and you better do it because, the scholarships are going to dry up and then you're not going to have a place to go. And, a kid like him that's supposed to go to Vanderbilt, Tennessee, or somebody is going to Tennessee, Chattanooga. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Jamie French, if you read the tea leaves, he's the big guy here. And Solomon Thomas is another guy, a lineman from Raines High School. I've seen flirtations that Florida could be involved. He's been verbal to go to Florida State. All that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks. I think Jamie French does end up probably going to Texas. He does want a Lamborghini. And I think there's a Lamborghini dealership in Austin. So you tie one and one together, and there you go. I don't think there's one in Athens or Gainesville or Columbus, Ohio. That's the world we live in now. Yeah.
Well, I listened to Jamie French, I think it was last week. He was on with Andy Staples. I listened to his interview. And he verbally said Texas is like the pretty clear front runner right now. And he said other schools definitely have a chance, and we'll see, and nothing's official yet, but he was like right now it's Texas for sure. So you're right, he's the number one guy in our area. I don't know. It's gonna be a crazy time. It always is. This time is one of the most insane times, and then I'd say that first portal window is the other time where it's just madness all the time.
Yeah, there's a short window of like 24 to 48 hours before signing day in December where it's like any rumor is like believed to be a fact.
Yeah.
And, most of the time it's, 50-50. Graham, let's move on to the NFL. Justin Jefferson gets a massive contract. He's the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. I think it was 4 years, $130 million. I think it was 110 guaranteed, I believe it was. CeeDee Lamb hasn't been showing up to OTAs or, for their off season. He wants to get paid, and then, who's going to be up next is going to be Jamar Chase because he was drafted the year after those guys. I have the sense that we're in this receiver bubble, and I know that we, kind of hit on this a week or so ago, talking about receivers and the value of them. It feels like, the NFL is just like every other business. It's a copycat league. We've seen Miami. Tyreek Hill and Waddle are two of the top 5 highest paid receivers in all of the NFL. And then you have a couple other guys like Devontae Adams. Jefferson's now number 1. And the question that I have still, and I understand that with the draft, that a lot of the teams, there was a run on receivers late in the first, early in the second. Are we in this receiver bubble just because it's a arms race and you have the feeling that you have to have a receiver that is top tier, and it was almost like we have to get this guy, help the quarterback, and then we'll figure out everything else. That's how it feels right now.
What do you mean by receiver bubble?
Like, it's just like everybody's getting overpaid right now, I feel.
So just basically it's a great time to be a receiver, is what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I mean, with all the rule changes.
Is this sustainable for the next 5, 6, 7 years? Or like, does this keep going up like quarterbacks? Or is this just like the point in time where it's like, okay, like this is the peak period right now for receiver?
I think it's going to keep going this way for some time. I think there's a couple contributing factors here, and none of these factors really seem to be going away. The overall money to go around is increasing. So a position that is deemed important by a lot of people will continue to increase, and I think receiver is part of that in this discussion. Receiver has entered the chat of quarterback, defensive end, left tackle. Receiver has entered that realm. It historically has not been, and that's kind of what you're talking about, of being in this bubble of elevating the position. Receivers have gone up, running backs have gone down. We all know the running back conversation. It's basically the opposite of what we're talking about right now. It's the worst time in the history of football to be a running back in terms of payment. But that's one factor. The fact that there's just more money to go around in general. And then you combine that with the passing game being more important than it's ever been, quarterback being more important than it's ever been. Surrounding your quarterback with weapons to throw to has been, we can debate how much we actually believe that, but at least on the surface and at least from 10,000 feet, it seems to be that's as important as it's ever been. Rule changes. These guys can run across the middle of the field without getting their head taken off like they historically couldn't. So because of that, you have guys like Justin Jefferson, guys like CeeDee Lamb does this to an extent. I would say Jamar Chase for sure does this. Historically, these guys would really only ever line up on the outside, right? And they'd be like alpha wide receiver 1 type guys. Man, these dudes are all over the place now. You'll see Justin Jefferson in the slot, out wide, in motion, jet sweeps. He'll run across the field from the slot. He'll take off down the field from out wide. He'll run post, slant, like he does everything. And that factors into adding to the value to individual star guys is the fact that as an offensive coordinator, I can get a hell of a lot more creative with my number 1 than I ever could have in the past. He's not stuck to one side. He's not stuck on the outside. And then I got to, have a separate individualized slot guy. I can do both with these guys. Now it presents a matchup nightmare because nowadays, man, if I have Justin Jefferson, if I'm, is it Kevin O'Connell?
Yeah.
It's O'Connell. Yeah. I always want to say O'Connor. It's O'Connell. Man, if I'm him and because he calls their offense and I got Justin Jefferson in the past, if I'm playing against Sauce Gardner, I'm playing against a CB1 in the league. In the past, that used to be like a matchup we'd watch for all night. We'd see, okay, so-and-so versus so-and-so. How is this matchup going to go? Remember, in their heyday, it was, and they used to always get in fights. It was Odell Beckham versus Josh Norman, and they'd always have these battles and whatnot. Well, now, man, if I'm an offensive coordinator, I'm going to move my guy around and make sure that cornerback 1 can't stick on him, right? I'm going to get him in advantageous matchups with a safety or a linebacker in the slot and then move him back outside and get him on the CB2 and move him all around. So that versatility that's been added to the receiver position is also adding to their value. And I think in the past couple of years, I know we debated a couple of weeks ago, we talked about, the Chiefs. They don't really have a receiver one, but they've won the past 2 Super Bowls. They do have an alpha weapon, though, in the league in Travis Kelce, right? And in a lot of ways, he is their wide receiver one. And I think we have seen a little bit of a shift in the recent, and really recent, meaning the last 4 or 5 years, where the couple of teams that are winning and going to the Super Bowl are indeed teams that do have kind of that alpha of a pass catcher. Whether it be, I'm kind of lumping tight ends in here a little bit, whether it be a tight end. I know the pay scale is different, but just in general, whether it be a tight end or a wide receiver, I tend to think that it is becoming more and more evident that you do need at least one guy that can dominate the defense to throw the ball to.
It's not... When we talked about this, we spoke mostly of the Chiefs. Like I saw yesterday, the Packers haven't spent a first-round pick on any skill position on the offense other than Jordan Love a couple of years ago. You can combine all 10 of their receivers. They're the youngest group in the NFL, and they're getting paid a total of $12 million. And it wouldn't be a surprise to anybody if they made the Super Bowl. You have the Detroit Lions.
Packers?
Yeah, the Packers.
It'd be a little bit of a surprise to me if they made the Super Bowl.
I mean,
they're a good team. They're a good football team. I think I'd say I wouldn't be surprised if they made the NFC Championship. But you got to get through the Niners and the Cowboys and the Eagles.
I mean, they did last year. And they had
you're
a
right.
big lead.
You're right.
And all those guys are coming back this year.
Yeah.
That's not surprising to me.
Okay, fair enough.
And then then you go Detroit. Detroit had Amon-Ra St. Brown, drafted in the 5th round. They develop him. Cheap labor, then they give him a big contract. And then the other receivers on that team, Jameson Williams, not much of an X factor. Baltimore, Zay Flowers, the receiver core is not really that good that you would consider. The 49ers, they spent a lot of guys in the 2nd, 3rd round. Ayuk, I think Debo was 2nd round. They spent a 1st rounder on Pearsall. I still think at the end of the day, being physical, like all those teams I just named, being physical up front and having the ability to run the football still matters most than having that number one wide receiver. And I'll go back to the playoffs this past year when Miami goes to Kansas City. Miami, it was there for the taking. Like, I thought Miami was going to win the division. I thought it was going to be their year. And I'm not going to be as high on them this year and moving forward because I don't think Tua is going to be the guy. You had Buffalo start the season 6-6. You had all these injuries to Anthony Richardson. Jacksonville wasn't as good with Trevor Lawrence being banged up. Cleveland had their quarterback hurt. You can go all these scenarios. The Steelers made the playoffs. They weren't that good. And yet Miami still couldn't win the division, so they couldn't get a home game, and they had to go in the freezing temperature of whatever it was, -40, -50 degrees, and you can't throw the rock. Like, you can't. Tyreek Hill and Waddle and Odell this year, they're not going to be effective in -30, -40 degrees. Like, it's just not going to be that way. In the same way, if you go to cold weather to Baltimore or Kansas City or Buffalo or New York, if they can make the playoffs, you have to be able to have a good offensive line and a good run game in order to have a championship run in January.
I agree with you. I don't agree that it's more important than an alpha wide receiver. Well, let me phrase that. A good offensive line is probably more important. I don't think that a good necessarily a consistent. I don't even know how to say this right. You don't have to have a dominant rushing attack. You have to have a good rushing attack, if that makes sense.
So 4.5, 5 yards a carry, good.
That's close to that.
That's
5 yards a carry is really good.
5. Yeah,
I'll say 4 yards a carry.
Okay.
But we've seen, and I think you'd probably agree with me, you don't need like one of the best running backs in the league to do so.
No, absolutely not. No.
Versus, I would argue that to be a top passing game in the league, I think you need a wide receiver or a tight end that can dominate the secondary for the most part. Like, the Chiefs are just kind of a tough outlier here because Patrick Mahomes is who he is. But I like okay, let me take you back to 2021. The two teams in the Super Bowl that year, the Rams and the Bengals, both of those teams had wide receiver one alphas, right? Cooper Kupp and Jamar Chase. I would argue those guys were more important than the running backs on those teams and the running games on those teams. However, those teams still needed to be able to run the ball to get to the Super Bowl.
I'll say with the Rams, yes, Cooper Kupp was spectacular that year, but the three best players on their team were the quarterback,
Aaron Donald,
and I would say the left tackle, Andrew Whitworth.
Yeah,
like that's your three. You look at the Chiefs, their best three players: Mahomes, Chris Jones, and then a third. Like there's no really good player on their offensive line that's stout, but they all play well. The Bengals, it seemed like it was an outlier. Like they had a terrible offensive line, and the pieces just fit right.
They ran the ball just okay.
Yeah, and they beat Kansas City on that run. Buffalo last year, you remember they were 6-6, like I mentioned. They changed their season whenever they started to be able to run the football.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not a one size fits all. You know, it makes it seem like I'm an anti-receiver guy. I just don't feel the need that you have to have the top number one receiver and have one of the highest paid guys on your team be a receiver. Because here's the thing, all these teams that are paying these receivers, okay, yes, you're going to be good at this aspect of the game, at this position, but okay, where are you going to lack? That's the thing with a salary cap. Like, you're going to lack at, hopefully, most teams, like, they're not going to spend a lot of money at linebacker or safety or running back. So then in the draft, you got to hit on those guys, or you got to hope that in free agency you spend something, cheap on something like them. So I don't know, I kind of want to throw that around.
Well, I think this goes back to a conversation that we've had before, and I think we agreed on it. Like, we're coming at this from a different approach, but it's just like you just said, there's not a one-size-fits-all on how you win a championship. And in the media and as fans, we love black and white answers to gray area questions, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, and it's also we're fantasy football freaks, and we know what everybody does because this guy was on my team, and he let me down in weeks 12 through 15, and we know that. And
I think what goes on is because we like black and white, we like, okay, this is what you do. We like the copycat aspect of the league, right? We like to say, okay, so the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, so that's the formula, right? The formula is draft a QB, let him sit for a year, develop him, have an elite tight end. You don't really need great receivers. Have a good running game, have a good, but a couple years ago when the Rams won it, that's not the exact approach they took. They had a veteran QB. They spent a lot more money in free agency and you've always historically heard that you build a great championship roster through the draft. Well, the Rams don't even care about draft picks.
No.
So the point is that there's not a one-size-fits-all to how you win a championship. I think, though, if you do draft and invest in a wide receiver and he does pan out, especially the level that Justin Jefferson has, you're going to be better off having that player than not.
So, okay, let me ask you this. Jacksonville makes the AFC Championship this year.
Okay.
How does that look offensively? Like, what if I said three things Jacksonville's offense has to do in order to make the AFC Championship?
You're saying
what?
You're saying with the way the roster is constructed, what's the championship formula for the Jaguars? Okay, that's a good question. It's a really good question. The formula is and most importantly, and this supports your argument, the offensive line got back on track and the running game got back on track. For this team specifically, watching them week in, week out, that was their main Achilles heel. And that really hurt their passing game, that hurt their rhythm, that hurt their play calling, that hurt everything. The fact that, because their running game was non-existent. And I will concede to your side of this argument here that if you can't run the ball at all, forget it. You're screwed. You probably won't make the playoffs, and if you do, you're going to lose. And we all know, if we remember, we all knew that even if the Jaguars had beaten the Titans that last week and made the playoffs, none of us had a lot of faith they were going to make a lot of noise.
No.
The momentum was so slow, and it was so rough to watch. None of us, and the main reason for that is every time Travis Etienne got the ball, he had two guys blowing him up in the backfield. So in terms of winning formula, you asked me to give you 3 things. That would be number 1. Is this? They got to clean it up. They were at like 3 something a carry.
I think it was 3.5. Yeah, because it was 4.5 the year before. It was 3.5 this past year.
I mean, I need a yard more on average. I would say secondly, I would come back to my side of the argument. Trevor and the receivers are humming. I'd say Brian Thomas has had, maybe this is probably unfair, but like how good Jamar Chase was his rookie year, how dominant he was, that kind of season. I'm not saying he doesn't have to be Jamar Chase, but just in terms of like
being productive week in and week out.
This guy's keeping offensive coordinators up at night, like that type of player. And I would say Trevor and Brian Thomas are having a clear and obvious dominant connection the entire season, and it's really given defenses problems. Third, Trevor cuts down dramatically on the fumbles.
Yeah, I
mistakes in general. I think interceptions.
It's a situational football that Doug Peterson and most people have said over and over again.
It's this is kind of a more conceptual thing, and sort of more statistical, concrete things come off of this. The awareness you're talking about, when it's 2nd and 9 and no one's open, just throw it away, live to see another play. Those types of plays, being a little smarter, not throwing it in the field of play with 5 seconds left or however many seconds left there were against the Ravens. Those types of things, eliminating the dumb stuff. Just being a smarter, more prepared quarterback, head coach, offensive coordinator, and football team in general. Those would be my 3. Run the ball better, more effectively. Doesn't have to be the best in the league, but you got to be effective. Brian Thomas being what he was drafted to be, and it being a smarter football team.
Yeah. And it starts with, because
you asked me offensively specifically.
Right, yes. If you look at what the Falcons did the year they made the Super Bowl, there was another team in that like a year after or before, I can't remember who it was. The offensive line started 15 or all of the games consistently, all 5 together. And what was the issue that Jacksonville had last year? It was Ezra Cleveland came in. Okay, he's a guard. And okay, now he has to play tackle this week. Cam's out.
Walker Little played some guard and some tackle.
Yeah, like you can't. And that's the thing. Like people think that, you can play line, move the tackle to guard. It doesn't work like that. It's just, like we're hearing the same thing with corner. Playing slot corner, playing corner on the outside is 2 different games. Your slot corner, you're playing on an island. You're playing on the outside. You have a friend that's called the sideline that you can use as a boundary. That's the number one thing. If Jackson wants to do anything and get better on offense, it's the offensive line. Graham, last thing before we go.
Oh, I've been waiting for this.
Yes. All right. So I'm not much of a movie person or a show person. You got to catch me at the right time. Like, I don't know. Like, I honestly, like stand-up specials, I got 10 minutes. If you don't make me laugh, I'm out.
Mm-hmm.
A show, like 20, 30 minutes, if I'm disinterested, I'm out. Like, I don't go back to it. I don't care if somebody's like, this is good. I tried. I don't care.
The stuff that starts slow and it takes you a minute.
Yeah.
Where people are like, you just got to get through the first season, and then you're out. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's how I usually am. So I'm usually more into like documentaries. Like I watched a movie. I watched a movie last night with Denzel, Out of Time. 90 minutes to 2 hours, perfect for me. So me and JJ, we always we text back and forth. So there's this new cult that came out. I think it's called Dancing to the Devil. Dude,
it's a cult documentary.
Yeah, it's a documentary about these dancers, and they are trying to. They all moved to LA. They're trying to make a name for themselves and branding and make money, yada yada yada.
So it's the dancing equivalent of like a singer that moves to Nashville to get noticed.
Yes,
right.
And then so they get with this guy, and you're gonna be with this yada yada yada. But this guy runs a church, and he tries to get these people in there, and it becomes a cult.
Yeah. I've seen where this is going.
That kind of thing.
There's gonna be some sexual stuff involved, I'm sure.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. And as of the last couple of years, it was TikTokers now. But he was doing it before TikTok became a thing. So you have that, and then there's this thing on HBO Max. It's called Love as One. It's kind of like the same thing. Like they worship this person, and they come into a cult.
I think I might have think I watched that.
That was incredible.
Was that one like the Mother God?
Yes.
Or whatever? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I watched this with my fiance Mallory. Who
Yeah,
you know.
I think I was the one that told her that she needs to watch it.
We watched it together. We were like, what is going on, dude?
It's unreal.
And what was the thing they always drank when they were sick that they thought would heal them? And it just made it way worse.
Like a ton of alcohol. I forget what it was.
Well, they drank a lot. It was like a heavy partying cult, but there was like a it's gonna kill me. There was a thing they would drink that like hospitals do not let people take, and it's like a whole thing. But they like believe this was like an ever healing potion, basically.
I know what you're talking about.
This is killing me.
Was it zinc?
It had to do with.
I think it was zinc.
Yeah.
Or silver or something.
Yes.
Cordal silver.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I think that's what it was. Anyway, Graham, I'm a boring person, and like I have health insurance. I've had a Roth IRA since I was 18. Like I don't care to go out and stuff. Dude, I want to join a cult for like just a little bit. I want to join a cult for like, I don't know if it's like 2 weeks or a month or 2 months. I just want to know what it feels like and to be around the people.
You say colloidal silver?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what I Googled. I just want to know what it feels like to be in a cult for just a little bit. I'm not going to, depart from my family for like a whole 7 years.
You just want to dip your toes in the cult?
Yeah, just a little membership, for a little bit. Just want to see what it feels like. And then I'll join the real world after I get out of the cult. Like,
you want a month-to-month lease?
Yeah, like a car. I get this car, an SUV for a little bit. I get out. I'm gonna get another car. Like, I want to join a cult for 3 weeks minimum, just to know what it feels like. Because
what's the maximum? 2
months. I can't do more than 2 months,
dude. If you're in a cult for 2 months, I don't know if you're getting out after 2 months.
Yeah, you're so brainwashed. By
I mean, I was gonna say you just said I was gonna say that. Like a huge instrument in cult stuff is brainwashing. Dude, by 2 months, you're going to think this cult is like heaven.
Oh, it's the truth.
Yeah. Whoever's like the leader, you are going to think is God.
Yeah. Like
3 weeks you could probably do. You could probably stay sane enough to get out after 3 weeks. 2 months, if it's an involved cult, if it's one of those where you like go live somewhere in the middle of Montana or something, I don't think you're getting out after 2 months, brother. No. I'm going to be calling you asking about sports, and you're going to be like, no, colloidal silver.
I mean, like, here's the thing. Like, we all go out and we hang out with people and whatever. Like, most people are boring. Like, most people talk about whatever. Dude, if somebody told me they were part of a cult, I would want to talk to that person for hours on end and just tell them what it was like. You know what I mean? You don't agree? Yes or yes?
I do agree. But it's funny picturing you talk to like some crazy cult
dude,
person.
I will sit here and I will write notes like
you come to me in the bar and be like, dude, this guy.
So what made you want to join this cult? And then I'll write this down and be like, okay, so what moment did you think you changed and departed from your family? Okay. Like, I just find it fascinating. You know what I mean? Like, I've watched 3 of these now. Like, I watched the one in Waco. That was about the church. I can't remember. It was on Netflix. I think it was.
I know what you're talking about. I don't know if I watched that one, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that came out a couple months ago. Like, dude, all of these cults are inspiring me to be in a cult. And I wonder if that's doing it for other people too.
I don't think so. I think it's winning you over, bro.
I'm probably being recruited right now. Somebody's watching this in Siberia.
Bro, you're about to get so many social media ads to join all these random things.
I can be bought. There's no question about it.
Let me ask you this then. Do you like camping?
I've never done it, so I can't say yes. I think I could do it.
You've never camped in your life?
No.
You're from the west side of Jacksonville. You never camped in your life?
I went to Baldwin. No. I mean, I do all kinds of fishing and never been in an RV.
Okay, so the reason I ask is a lot of these cults have no money.
Mm-hmm.
So where they all like do their whole little thing is they go to like the middle of nowhere.
Yeah,
and
they go on a mountain and they
camp in the middle of the woods somewhere, so they don't have to pay for anything. And if you are the type of person that I hate that type of stuff. That would get me out in general. If you tell me that wherever I'm going to live with these people, I ain't got no AC and I don't have a Publix nearby, I'm not going. So that would probably keep me from joining the cult in the first place. But if that doesn't bother you, then maybe these are your people, man.
Yeah. I mean,
what kind of cult specifically would you look
That's
for?
I was thinking about that. Like the what kind of cult?
Would it be like a religious thing? Would it be like a party thing? They're all sort of religious in a way.
I couldn't do a party thing like drink every night like that. No, that's not me.
The one that we watched, the what was it called?
Love Is One.
Love Is One.
That's the religion. That was deep into religion.
Yeah. Well, but it was almost like, and this happens with a lot of cults. It's like the religion is anti-religion, if that makes sense. Like their religion is rejecting all this other stuff that they've learned their whole life, and they're sick of the church and they're sick of however they were raised. So they want to be as anti that as possible.
They're trying to escape. Yeah,
and that's where they get you. Like in the Love Is One, like the mother god being God, like a lot of these people grew up Christian and they were told how they're supposed to do this and that and whatever, and they love the fact that now the person they consider God is like this party girl.
Well, and they really meant with something else, like something beforehand, like you need this, you need help with that, and then it dissolves into that.
My favorite part about cult documentaries is the involvement of celebrities. It makes me laugh so hard. Like in the Love Is One, they were just convinced that Robin Williams was like some like,
and Donald Trump. I mean, they're dead. This person's dead, but these people, we idolize these people, and they've never spoke to them. No communication ever. Like what?
The craziest part of that whole documentary is they'd be in like, I don't remember I think like Oregon was a big place they went, and then Hawaii was another one. So they'd be in like Oregon, I think Oregon and like Malibu or something were like the main spots. Not Malibu. What's the big island in Hawaii? Maui. Yeah. Sorry, Maui. I think those were like their two big places they would go. Like that's where they ended up spending the most time. The reason, like they'd be in the middle of Oregon, and the mother god would wake up one day and be like, "Yeah, Robin Williams, who's been dead for years, Robin Williams just told me we need to head back to Maui," and they would. Yeah. They just go.
They're like, drop of a bucket.
What?
Yeah, drop
like
of a hat.
That's insane.
Oh. I find them very fascinating.
So you want to like just vibe in that for like 3 weeks?
For a little bit, just dabble in it.
So, but again, would it be? I guess
it'd have to be something religion. I mean, I don't know of another cult that's like all of these cults that I've watched are based around religion.
Yeah, but again, it's like the lack of religion is the religion type of thing. Like Scientology, they basically made their own religion.
Right. Like you worship one person.
I bet there's like a sports cult out there somewhere.
Yeah, I'm gonna do some research.
Where just all you do is just watch and bet on games.
Yeah, I'm gonna do some research. The next pod, I'm gonna have a topic of they're gonna be subjects of cults, and then I'm gonna categorize it, and we can go from there.
What about this? This is a big brain move.
Okay.
What if you do your scouting report on different cults? You're sending out resumes to different cults.
The leaders.
Yeah, and you don't really like what you're getting back. Right, and nothing really nothing really tickles your fancy to join these guys. What if you start your own? I've already got the groundwork for it. This is your cult.
That's a lot of brain power.
So your cult is a sports cult where you and a couple buddies just get an apartment, and the way that you pay for the apartment is you just have to win bets, and that's how you pay for everything.
That's almost like a bookie. At that point.
Yeah, but it's all the time. You wake up.
Would you consider that a cult? I feel like that'd just be a way of
man, once you get enough people involved, and then they're gonna start calling you Father God or something.
Well, okay,
then it's a cult, bro.
Yeah, this is true. I mean, that's a good way to make some money.
Yeah, dude, that'd be sweet.
And it's not a crime.
It's not.
That we saw from Dancing to the Devil, because they were like trying to get to where they could sue this person basically at the end, and they were like trying to set up to be like, okay, well, I was given this money and they were spending my money.
And instead of like Robin Williams and like Trump, it's just like former athletes that have random visions.
So rest in peace, Larry Allen.
Yeah.
We could do.
I feel like it needs to be ones that have died.
Kobe would be at the top.
Yeah, there'd be like a dude living in your house. He's part of the cult, but he's losing his bets.
Yep.
And you come and be like, "Hey, Kobe said you got to get out.
Yeah.
Like you can't be part of this anymore." And he's like, "Well, if Kobe said it."
There's one more person. There's got to be like a like a Babe Ruth.
Yeah, like a baseball player. Yeah.
Baseball guys,
Pele.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Like one deceased like GOAT from each sport. There it is. Like Wilt Chamberlain.
Yep. God.
That'd be so hype. That sounds like, I mean, I would join.
You're giving me ideas to to run $1 million business.
I mean, that's all you need.
All right. I'm colted out for the day. I'm Dylan Denmark. That's Graham Marsh.
You're already colted out. Dude, we talked about it for like 15 minutes. You said you wanted to join for 3 weeks.
I did. For 3 weeks. 3 weeks to 2 months. And we'll continue the conversation next episode.
All right.
You good for later in the week? What's the deal?
Yeah. We'll do a Thursday or Friday, guy.
Yeah, next week, later in the week, I'll be flying to Philly. I'll be going to the New Balance Nationals. Coach Denmark got a AAU.
Oh, okay.
We got some boys, and we got one girl that's going to go up there, and hopefully they can do something, make a name for themselves, and hopefully get some scholarship money somehow, somewhere.
For AAU, you said?
Yeah.
For what?
Well, this is like high school season's over, so now it's AAU track now.
Oh, track.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
when I think AAU, I know there's AAU for track, but when I think of it, I just think basketball.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you don't coach basketball.
No.
But okay, that makes sense, guys.
Yeah, so that's where I'll be. So we'll probably do one episode next week, but we'll get back later this week on Denmark and Marsh on all your 1010XL podcast platforms. Until then, your cult leader, Dylan Denmark, is out.